to go ahead to read the resolution to go into public hearing for the bylaw, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolved, the regular meeting of council be adjourned and the public hearing be opened for bylaw 4 of 2021.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Horvis, Councillor Bathroy, second discussion. Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Question. And Deepak, if you want to go ahead and start the presentation on the bylaws for today.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What I have is a quick presentation to introduce both bylaws. We are going into public hearings separately on each one, but I'll give an overall presentation, and then Tyler's available to answer specific questions, especially related to the traffic bylaw, and was to both bylaws, and then he can address some of those comments after my presentation. And then we will go into, and I don't think we have anybody registered. We don't have anybody registered to speak, and we only have 2 letters that we received. So the 2 bylaws that we're bringing forward today, there were 3 bylaws that were read at a previous council meeting, and the speed limits on the streets is was given additional time for citizens to receive information, and these 2 bylaws were offered as our next public hearing. And so offers the Provincial Offences Act bylaw as well as the Traffic Regulations bylaw are being brought forward today for discussion, bylaw 4 and bylaw 5. And in 2011, the Department of Justice began working with a group of stakeholders and members of different municipalities to determine the challenges RMs were having with enforcing bylaws. In 2013, it was determined that a complete overhaul of the Summary Convictions Act was needed. In 2017, the Department of Justice officially passed the Provincial Offences Act. A main factor for moving in this direction was to assist municipalities with the prosecution and enforcement of their bylaws. This has provided municipalities an opportunity to provide effective and fair enforcement procedures with set standards to allow each municipality to operate with its own autonomy. The Provincial Offences Act gives the municipality authority to issue provincial tickets as a main priority. Our municipality is focused on as a main priority, our municipality is focused on our residents and being able to be efficiently able to help them. We believe that in reviewing our bylaws, and we'll be continuing, we will be reviewing our bylaws and we'll be continuing to update and redraft as necessary to provide a fair and efficient service. The Provincial Offences Act bylaw, number 4 of 2021 that's coming forward, is replace the Summary Convictions Act, and will provide the municipality ability to enforce provincial acts, regulations, and contraventions of municipal bylaws. The RM has followed the provincial guidelines, which includes creating a schedule for preset fines while creating the POA, and has included the following bylaws to be included and implemented. Those bylaws are Prevention of Fire 5 of 2012, Behavioral Bylaw 15 of 2016, Traffic Regulations Bylaw 6 of 2016. And further, what does this mean for the RM? This means that the RM will be able to enforce and issue a provincial offences ticket for the listed offences in the POA bylaw. Our main goal and vision for current times and the future will always be to do our best to educate and provide as much information as possible regarding the bylaws. The POA will help us with more difficult situations that we do face from time to time. So the next bylaw is Traffic Regulation Bylaw number 6. This bylaw will allow the municipality to enforce traffic infractions on municipal roads. A few examples are person driving on a non-truck route, or failure to stop at a stop sign. And the intent is that these bylaws were put forward as part of our public consultation and communication due to COVID restrictions and information that was shared online. All the information I just read to you and shared with you has all been shared on our website with our citizens and people were encouraged to provide input and if they had any concerns by a particular day. After the first reading, when it occurred on March 9th, these bylaws were shared immediately online, inviting comments, opportunity to present or submit for a public hearing on March 30th. Today was identified, and information was also shared on social media. We also had some frequently asked questions as part of this. They were, how will these new bylaws impact our residents and who to make a complaint to? And there's details identifying what that means. Does this mean I will automatically receive a ticket rather than a warning? It talks about that you know, we're in the issue of compliance, not necessarily always giving tickets. What are the fines? What does the breakdown look like? Who enforces speed limits? Will there be signs put up? All that information was provided. And so far, we haven't received any further presentations from anyone other than the 2 letters that we received today. So in order to address those, I've asked Tyler to be on our Zoom meeting to be able to speak to those. So Tyler, if you don't mind, could you address those 2 letters that were sent to us? You're muted right now, Tyler. There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sorry. So yeah, the 2 letters that we did receive, I spoke with Manitoba Justice regarding those letters, and basically, once Justice got back to me after they looked at all the information that was presented, because some of those questions were raised to Justice as well. So the people, you know, the municipality in regarding the 2 emails, Justice is also aware of it. Basically what that meant is Manitoba Justice got back to me and there was some modifications that I had to do to the Provincial Offences Act. So, Deepak, do you have that email? Are we able to share that one?
The complaint from the individual?
From Manitoba Justice.
No, I don't have that letter, sorry.
Okay, basically, I can read verbatim from it. It's a pretty short letter, but this is from one of the senior policy analysts from Justice, and the first thing he says was basically they had a chance to review the bylaws, overall very well done. A few things that will need to be updated, I've highlighted and left comments on them in the attached document, but I'll summarize it here. Fine, there was 2. So regarding the issue where in the one email, the individual states that the municipalities cannot issue fines greater than $1,000, Justice confirmed that they're going to look further into it, but regardless, what I did with that current Provincial Act bylaw that you have is I modified the fining system so nothing is over 1,000. So I basically tweaked a few things here and there to make it all right, right? So that was one of the issues that the individual raised. That was from the email on March 8th, I believe it was. Are you able to pull that email up, Deepak?
Yeah, I've already brought it up, and council has access to that email as well of the agenda.
Okay, perfect, okay. So the email goes over the fining issue, what the municipalities can and cannot enforce. And basically what Justice has told me was, yeah, you have to alter that, which we have done. Regarding the one thing about us enforcing stuff under the traffic regulations, Justice recommended that we get a legal opinion to see if we can do that from our legal team. And the interesting thing is this bylaw is already in effect in East St. Paul, and their legal team has said it's okay. Justice has passed that bylaw, and East St. Paul has already began writing tickets for those sections as well. So my understanding is the Justice has passed the bylaw, the legal team has worked with them, it's all legit, and it went through Manitoba Justice. So I let Manitoba Justice both know that, and they were totally okay with it, no issue at all. Other than that, some of the things from Justice that they recommended doing was some of the characters were too much. There's only allowed 255 characters in each offense description, so that's all been altered. And there was just a couple wording issues that I just had to adjust, and that was it. So Justice has looked at it again and said it's all good, and they're just waiting for a second and third reading and it to be passed, and then they can move forward. So Justice looked at it and approved it.
Thank you, Tyler. Do you want to speak to the March 29th email?
Yes, let me pull it up here.
I just have a question before you get into that one. So this email that actually came to me on March the 8th was not from somebody complaining, that's from the province?
No, on March 8th was somebody complaining. Same individual, I think, sent you an email on the 29th.
Yes.
And the individual has not identified their name or address, or we have any idea who they are, but since it was online and it was made available, we felt that it was an opportunity at least to share an address.
Okay.
We do have some understanding that it may be the same complaints that had occurred when East St. Paul had their bylaw, but we're not positive.
Okay, thank you for that feedback. Go ahead, Tyler, sorry.
Well, that's okay. So, yeah, so Deepak's 100% correct. This individual, from speaking with East St. Paul, it was the same scenario. When I spoke with Justice, they basically confirmed that. I don't have a name for this individual, nor does anyone else, just the email address. Regardless of the fact, when he's going over what we can and cannot do with the Highway Traffic Act and the fact that we've overstepping our boundaries, at the end of the day, these bylaws have been passed in East St. Paul. Tickets have been written, and Justice has approved those bylaws about a year and a half ago. And now Justice is approving ours, saying that we are legally able to enforce these things. So whatever this individual is kind of stating, my opinion is Justice has this current bylaw and says it's good and we can enforce it. And that's coming directly from the province.
And so basically, to address his last question, whether it's been approved by the minister, we don't have to go to the minister. Tyler has done his homework with Justice.
See this legal fees too.
Okay, anything else that you want to share there, Tyler?
I don't think so. I think the main thing, if you were to open up the bylaw, the Provincial Offences Act, just so we're all aware, there was 2 fine categories that needed to be altered because I made the mistake of rounding up the court costs to rounding up $1, and they should have been rounded down. So those things kind of makes the whole bylaw, highlighted those numbers in yellow. So it just changed the 2 categories by $1 each. Other than that, I removed anything over 1,000 in the overweight penalties. So basically now if you are, if you're caught on an overweight, perfect. Okay, so yeah, the fine table F and G there, 267 was 268, 429 was 430. So that's the difference there. There was a couple alterations of me just shrinking down the actual offenses. And then if you go down to, there was also, there used to be 2 more fine categories there, I and J, but they were both over 1,000, so I just completely removed those. And then when you go into Schedule C, now I have it worded as anything over 2,500 pounds will be that set $1,000 penalty, which Justice said we're allowed to do, and that individual said you can't fine over 1,000. So now we're back to nothing over 1,000, and Justice is all good with it.
Okay.
Thank you, Tyler. He's highlighted these in yellow, so it shows for council the changes that occurred. Of course, when the bylaws will be implemented, the highlights will be removed.
Right. Okay, any questions from members of council to Tyler or Deepak? Okay, Deepak, Deepak, was there anything else that you wanted to share with us? Or Tyler, anything else that you wanted to comment on while we have you on the line?
Just one item. Go ahead, Tyler. Go ahead, Tyler.
No, just the main point that I have is that I heard from Justice on a few things. They were all changed. Justice seen my changes and they said it's all good and we'll wait for the sign copy.
Okay, thank you.
Just to close off, we've covered both bylaws as part of the first public hearing. So we'll finish the public hearing, close it, and then you can start the second one. Since we have no other individuals, we won't go through the whole process again. Okay, so that's it for the Madam Mayor, so if you
Okay.
like.
Yes, the resolution to close the public hearing for bylaw 4.
Resolved, the public hearing for bylaw 4, 2021 be closed and the regular session of council be reconvened.
Can I have a mover, please? Councilor Horbus, Councilor Strange, second. Discussion. Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Okay, so next is opening up a public hearing for bylaw number 6.
Okay.
So, resolve the regular meeting be adjourned and public hearing be opened for bylaw 6 of 2021.
Can I have a mover, please? Councilor Belanger, Councilor Sutherland, seconds. Discussion. Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, so now if you want to go through, I don't know if Deepak, you're going to do part of it, or whether Tyler's going to do part of it, is for bylaw 6 of 2021, which is the traffic bylaw.
So again, Madam Mayor, this was already covered in the previous
Yeah.
session, so it's all similar information since we don't have any residents signed up or any information to that regard. So what we'll do is we'll put that into the record as part of an initial overall presentation of bylaw 6, which is our traffic bylaw. And I propose that we move forward to the closing of the public hearing.
Okay, thank you for that, and if you want to, go ahead, Councilor Spicer, or were you moving the closing? Okay, then go ahead, Deepak.
Resolve the public hearings for the bylaw 6 of 2021 be closed and a regular session of council be reconvened.
And move, please, Councilor Spicer, Councilor Bachelor, second. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, so now we are down to bylaw number 7 on our agendas, and it's 9.5 on the agenda, and bylaw 7.
We're on 9.1, Madam Mayor, now it's second and third
Sorry.
reading. So we just finished the public hearings.
Yes, we just finished the public hearings, I'm getting ahead of myself. So bylaws, number 9 on our agenda, and bylaw 4 for second and third reading. And please remember, for third reading, we will have an automatic recorded vote. So if you want to read the resolution for bylaw 4 for the second reading, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolve bylaw 4 of 2021 being a bylaw of the rural municipality of St. Clements to provide for implementation of the Provincial Offences Act be given second reading as amended.
Can I have a mover, please? Councilor Horbus, second. Councilor Sutherland, discussion. Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Bylaw number 4 of 2021, third reading, please.
Resolved, bylaw 4 of 2021 being a bylaw of the rural municipality of St. Clements to provide for implementation of the Provincial Offences Act be read a third time as amended.
Can I have a mover, please? Councilor Spicer, Councilor Strang, seconds. Discussion. Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Now we go on to bylaw 6, which is the traffic bylaw and second reading.
Resolved, bylaws, I'm sorry, I opened up the wrong one. Resolved, bylaw 6 of 2021 being a bylaw to provide the regulation of traffic, parking, and use of streets, roads, and sidewalks within the limits of the rural municipality of St. Clements be given a second reading as amended.
Can I have a mover, please? Counselor Horvis, Counselor Spicer seconds, discussion. Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. And bylaw 6, third reading, please.
Resolved, bylaw 6 of 2021 being a bylaw to provide for the regulation of traffic, parking, and use of streets, roads, and sidewalks within the limits of the rural municipality of St. Clements be read a third time as amended.
Can I have a mover, please? Counselor Bazarowicz, Counselor Sutherland seconds, discussion. Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, now we are on to bylaw number 7, which is the general reserve bylaw, and we've had discussion on this one, and it's for second and third reading, so Deepak, if you wouldn't mind going ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolved, bylaw 7 of 2021 being a bylaw to establish a general purpose reserve fund be given a second reading.
Can I have a mover, please? Counselor Boulanger, Counselor Strang seconds, discussion. Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Again, bylaw 7 of 2021, the general reserve bylaw for third reading.
Resolved, bylaw 7 of 2021 being a bylaw to establish a general purpose reserve fund be read a third time.
Can I have a mover, please? Counselor Bazarowicz, Counselor Spicer seconds, discussion. Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried.
Okay, Tyler, thank you very much. You can stay on if you like, but you don't have to.
Jumping jacks.
Thank you for the offer. Yeah, have a good day, everyone.
Yeah,
You
you
too.
too.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so we are down to number 10 on our agenda, which is,
Any question?
oh, sure, go ahead.
Tyler, he'll be operating under Prairie bylaw, correct, when he's doing all that, or is he working for, like, operating under us? I know he was gonna be under us for the protective services stuff, but when he's implementing these new bylaws under the provincial,
Our agreement with Prairie Bylaw was that we would be able to use Tyler Protective Services related issues. So he is right now a Prairie Bylaw employee, and as part of the Prairie Bylaw employee, his time has been devoted to help with some of these tasks, and they understand that he's been doing that for us. And so we're just paying our regular fee for Prairie Bylaw enforcement while he's been doing that. He's been also providing emergency preparedness as part of that agreement. That was in the past. I think it was more or less a verbal agreement, but they've understood, and it's been working that way. As we move forward with our new contract Prairie Bylaw enforcement, that'll be something for discussions.
the only reason I'm asking, and perhaps Prairie bylaw has policies already, but moving into this realm of having more enforcement responsibility given to the RMs through these new acts that the province agreed to give us more autonomy, what comes with that is also more danger for the officers involved. So you've got role of engagement, you've got role of disengagement. Generally, policies guide officers on what they have to do on a stop and what they should do and shouldn't do. So I'm just wondering, with this new responsibility for Tyler, does Prairie bylaw have policies that guide him on that? Or does the RM have to develop some policies on when we want him to engage on a stop? Like, for example, if he's doing a stop for somebody stopping and not stopping the stop sign, speeding, if that person chooses not to stop, that opens up a massive can of worms. When I was in uniform, we had specific policies that said, you shall do this and you shall do that. We were very crystal clear in that. We were trained on them every year. You shall not do this, and if you do, you will be held accountable, civilly and so I'm just wondering, with this, is there any thought we need to put into this and I'm getting at protecting Tyler?
Good questions. One is the future. That's still a part of our budget discussions and future negotiations with Prairie bylaw. Right now, with Prairie bylaw, if they are enforcing it, we know that they already have rules and regulations and how they're enforcing the traffic bylaws and some of those, because they're already offering that service in the arm of East St. Paul and other places. The other thing is that Prairie by Law Enforcement is also offering additional services that we're in the middle of negotiating a new contract with them. At which point we're doing some reviews as to how to best deliver on that service. And that's a budget discussion for you and for council to give you direction on that.
Because our bylaw officer is really getting into some things that they haven't been doing, and they're going to be newly getting into, and I just want to make sure that everybody's protected on every angle.
You make very good points, and we'll make sure we address this.
He would be trained, though, he can do that now, because he just doesn't work in St. Clements. He could go and work in West St. Marie, St. Paul, right?
He's been trained by Prairie by Law
Yeah.
Enforcement,
Okay.
and Prairie by Law Enforcement is able to function anywhere. And so right now, he's been negotiated to our employees.
That's, well,
Okay, anything else before we move on? Okay, communications for information.
There are various items in here, Madam Mayor, and the one I wanted to bring to your attention was the Municipal Relations Bulletin 22109 that I think all of council should be aware of. What this is a change in the reassessment cycle. So this would have been a reassessment cycle, and the previous base number was for 2020. April 1st of 2020 was the previous reassessment cycle, so that it was based on a 2-year cycle of doing a review and then reporting on the value of those properties. Due to COVID, the province of Manitoba has made the change that it shall be April 1st, 2021, not taking 2020 into consideration. So this will make it a unique situation because it'll be a 3-year cycle, because the assessment cycle will be done, and with the next assessment period would begin in 2023. So 2022 would be that major one. So they're going, and that's due to COVID, just so that you understand. And there are opinions on both sides of this, but the province has made this decision, and we're just notifying you of it.
Questions, comments from anyone? Kind of out of our hands, but that's one of the things I had to do, so. Okay, and I guess I asked for a couple of things to be put on here, and one of them was the Red River North Tourism, some of the information from their AGM that Councillor Strang and I were on Zoom. I thought there was some interesting and good information there, so I asked you to please put it on. And 10.4.4, the Winnipeg Metro Region, the February board update. So that's just a listing of what the board has been up to in the month of February. I know a lot of the municipalities are saying that they're not getting enough information from their representative that sits on the WMR board. So Colleen Sklar, the executive director, has started doing these monthly board updates and for all of councils to have a look at, and you can see everything that was done in the last month. So, and I guess the other thing that I would stress, that if anybody has any questions or concerns with anything that you've heard or seen about WMR, never hesitate to contact Colleen. Like, she's more than willing to take a question, or, you know, if you have some questions, answer those questions for you. And, you know, she always tells us at our meeting, if anybody has any questions, please get them to call me. So I'm just passing on that February update. And I don't think I have anything else. Anybody else? Go ahead, Rob.
if anybody has the chance, I'm not sure some may have read this document, Coalition to Save Lake Winnipeg.
Okay, yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, there's a big push there for the north end.
Yeah.
Actually, it's not north end anymore, it's north of Winnipeg.
So,
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Yes, I guess there's been a lot of discussion about that, and I know that, I know that the city of Winnipeg has, what would you say, they have chosen to not proceed with anything till, what year was that, Deepak? I don't even recall. They did a report.
Yes, I can't recall the date.
Yeah.
Well, they're waiting for announcements of federal and provincial funding.
So-
So they're not gonna do anything
No.
until that happens.
Yeah, but this was like almost like years away, like not a year or two, but many years away, so we'll have to kind of wait and see what happens with that.
And I think with for us to understand is, what they're saying is that they're not going to make any more further connections or sharing of sewer services at a regional level, that they need to take care of their internal requirements.
Yeah.
The wonderful thing for us is, right from the boundary of East St. Paul to East Selkirk, we are already taken care of.
Great. Okay, if there are no other items under correspondence or info, I will move into the committee reports, which is number 11 on our agenda, and I'm going to start way at the far end, so Councillor Spicer, you can go ahead.
I'm a long-winded guy first, eh?
You got 10 minutes.
That's why Orbis went back in his chair, crossed his arms.
You should have a little dinger.
So on March the 10th, WMR Plan 2050, and that was the introduction of Plan 2050, and I guess we do have an opportunity to submit comments. So I thought it was pretty interesting. Essentially, I'm not going to go through it all, but you know, they're thinking that most of the jobs and most of the residential and most of the industrial can be handled in the city of Winnipeg. Like 86% of the land is there for that development. And one of the things that popped out at me was the RMs were to avoid designating residential or employment lands. So I wrote myself a little note, so how do the RMs survive? And Deepak and I had a couple of discussions about that. You know, it's easy to plan that way, but if, you know, the market's gonna decide. Not everybody wants to do things. And they went through the 5 policy areas. One of the things that jumped out, I guess, was settlement centers. And I believe East Selkirk is considered a settlement center, and Lockport is considered a settlement center. I guess the only thing that comes to mind is where's the boundary? If we're talking about our sewer line running all the way to the boundary, does that include into Lockport Settlement Center, or doesn't? I mean, we're providing some of those services, right? The other thing that's coming into it is natural assets as a part of the asset management plan, so that's going to be pretty interesting. I had another question. How did they set the commuter shed boundary? Because they have a map there with a boundary on it. Well, I mean, we know that people drive from Gimli to Winnipeg to work, and they're outside of that boundary. We know that there's people that are in like Leicester Beach area, drive in, they're outside of that boundary. So it's a question. Wow. They're going to be busy for a long time because they have agriculture impact assessments, regional housing strategy, regional servicing strategy, regional infrastructure investment prioritization framework, sludge management master plan, infrastructure investment, municipality drinking water and wastewater plan. And some of this affects us. Some of it the WMR is supposed to be doing, and some of this we have to do. Regional transit service, regional transportation master plan, municipality transportation master plan, zero emissions vehicle strategy, regional economic development framework. Like, I got another half a page. Like this, there is a lot of work ahead of this. And as I said, some of it's gonna fall on us. So I thought that was quite interesting. We had a Gaynor Library monthly meeting on March the 11th. We had the auditor out and went over the financial statement. As I reported before, we actually came out a little bit to the good, considering that we lost a significant amount of revenue. Something to celebrate. We're still at, for COVID opening, let's call it, we're still at curbside, and you can get access to the 3 computers by appointment. We didn't open up any further at this point in time. Large discussion about fundraising, because we're looking at this year probably ending up being the same as last year. So we're looking at what options are there. March 16th, we had committee of the whole, budget and policy discussions. March 18th, we did the BAR webinar. That was on recycling, promotion, and education. So there's, I believe we got that put forward. So if in the future we're going to do some more education for our residents, I think that there's some good just ways that you can do it there. March 18th, our RPD Zoom meeting, and that was the update on operations. So that was one of the, I believe it was one of the recommendations in the report that was done for better operations. So it was good to hear their update. March the 19th was Colleen's farewell. March the 23rd was the City of Selkirk RRPD public hearing. Interesting evening of 3 hours. I guess I'll just leave it at that. March 24th, special meeting of council for the Blowing bylaws. And then today, committee of the whole this morning, preliminary budget. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Scott. Go ahead, Councillor Belanger. Oh, just a minute, Councillor Borges has this question.
Oh, at the library there, the proceeds from the renting the building from the cafeteria and the land thing there, whatever it's called, the planning, does that go into the library fund?
Okay, so planning, rental, they have a lease with the City of Selkirk, and it's actually, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a prepaid lease for the next 20 years. Now, there's 2 rooms that you can rent in the library. One's the theater and the other one's the Heritage Room, I guess you call it?
Bob Jefferson Room.
Yeah. Though that and any rental from the cafe area, that goes into library operations, but of course, all of that was essentially zero last year.
Well, and two, at one time when people were meeting face to face, there were different things going on in the theater where the RRPD board meets in that big boardroom. Like there was many things going on in there, And I think sometimes that was rented out too. I don't think it was all for use.
Like,
I know the library had some programs that went on in there, but I thought there was outside entities.
yeah,
that also-
outside entities will rent it, like,
I
and
think
it's
AGM was
a few
rented.
bucks, like, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's in $10,000 to $20,000 range
Per
that's
rental.
gone.
And you guys still keep,
Yeah, well, we just cut as much as we could. We didn't lay anyone off though, but of course, we didn't have any summer students, so that was one thing.
Turn the heat down. Just kidding.
But, no, it worked out well, but it's gonna be another tight year.
Okay, anything else for Councillor Spicer? Go ahead then, Councillor Boulanger.
March 9th, our regular council meeting. March 11th, we had a biz meeting, Solid Biz. I guess Costco was planning to open up in West St. Paul, somewhere in there.
Just nothing inside of the perimeter.
Yeah, so I think what they're gonna try to do is something unique. The BizBucks is such a huge success, $300,000, I think, over the last couple of years. They're trying to get something with Costco that if you buy membership, that you get some BizBucks given to you, so that is another big thing. 16th, we had the budget. 23rd, our special meeting with our RPD issues, and the 24th, special meeting for bylaws. That's it.
Okay, thank you for that.
So-
Councillor Horvis.
16th, the budget meeting, and the 24th, the special board bylaw.
Councillor Sutherland.
March 16th, our budget meeting. March the 18th, the Lamar webinar. And, yeah, the Barbara McDonald, I think she, lots of discussion about recycling, public awareness, this process, you know, what goes in the recycling bins. And like I gather with us, there is no restrictions on what goes in, but I know when we used to take stuff from our transfer stations, and lots of the stuff that goes in, it just, they don't take it. They would accept it, but we didn't get paid for it. So I don't know if we'll ever be to the point where we're going to educate the people on what goes in the recycling bin, because then they're gonna end up with the same problem, you know, you got a recycling program, where do we put the other stuff? So I don't know if that's, you know, but that is a big problem, you know, because educating people what goes into the bins. And I can see that, you know, it's recyclables, people don't know, so everything goes in. Even these aren't accepted, the bottles, the water bottles.
Water bottles?
Yep.
They're not acceptable at the recycling plants?
Unless it's got the thing on that little squeaky.
Yeah, there's nothing, they don't, like, I found that.
What everyone's thinking, there's that
I went to the date that the Red River Planning District, the Council Education. I forget the date, I have got it marked, sorry.
That was
Found it
the
interesting,
18th.
like their discussion on this is the cloud permits, you know, so it's gonna save a lot in efficiency in, you know, office staff and customer service. As they say, permits be issued 50% faster, which is, you know, found that pretty interesting. When is that in effect?
So they were having a soft launch this week.
It's not a,
Yeah, they were having a soft launch this week, and for the general public, it wouldn't be available, I think they said mid-April.
okay. March 24th, our special meeting for the third reading of the mooring bylaws. And March 23rd, the City of Selkirk public hearing. I listened to that too, so I guess you can form your own opinion. I mean, they're gonna go on their own, as simple as that, so. If I beat a dead horse, just let them go. They're gonna go anyway, but anyway, that's it, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Strang.
March 9th to 12th, I attended a rec conference by Zoom. And a lot of the sessions spoke about the need for recreation during these COVID pandemic times. Parks and trails, very important to have in our RM. People are driving, we've discussed this all here, but people are driving all over just to go have different scenery. But yeah, recreation, they're saying very important, and just on people's mental health too. And one thing I found out with working with the South St. Clements, just with Brenna, that she brings up different prospects of different designs, and on here was, one of the things was just multi-general designs on everything you do, because how the age is growing older, but you know, it's usually the younger kids going to the parks and everything. But a lot of older people are taking their grandchildren, so have it something that everybody can utilize. The other thing was virtual volunteering. So that's becoming a way too. Everything's turning virtual, right?
Yeah.
March 10th, I also, that morning, I did the WMR for the 2050, and I found it very interesting for, especially as RRM, how West St. Paul, say West St. Paul, East St. Paul is going to benefit more, but it's maybe going to slow us down a little bit, because you see how developers are coming in here. Is it going to put any brakes on us too? And too, with our river lots that we have here, you know, I guess we're going to be going into conservation subdivisions.
Well, I think that's part of our problem is, you know, East and West St. Paul are getting the development right at the present time, but part of our drawback is we don't have any services. Now, if we can get that pipe in the ground, that I believe would open up a lot for us. And it wouldn't have to be conservation, it would be, you know, any kind of subdivision that you wanted to have, so.
Industrial.
Whatever, like, you know, it's just that the problem is, you know, not having the services.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Paul.
no, it's, Rob mentioned industrial, and there is an opportunity for our industrial park to expand, in Fiegel's property, but the pipe's gotta be there, make it a lot easier.
Well, and I think that was being worked on, and we kind of haven't heard anything on that recently,
Yeah, I think
so.
they're available, they have the opportunity to come forward, and certainly if they make the application, we are, I would share in the planning process, and we are putting in the sewer system. The advantage is that the RM is already, the thing is that we need, and I'll address Councillor Spicer's and Councillor Stragg's comments on this. The St. Clements has already completed the development plan, which is already taking Venture Land into consideration. So whether you're a settlement area or in any other area, as long as you have the services, we've already accommodated by having our development plan that says that this area is open to RS development, service residential. So since that's been put into the zoning bylaw, somebody can make an application towards that. So they can go from agricultural restricted or agricultural to or rural residential to service residential. Because of the service residential, you're allowed to go to smaller lots. The biggest advantage and disadvantage on the part of the settlement area is that it requires it to be at a minimum density. And that minimum density is maybe a little too dense in some areas. So your development plan, our development plan accommodates all that flexibility. And in the case of going into places such as Lockport, where you want to see that level of density as a settlement area, we have senior legislation that accommodates that beyond what's been already contemplated by this RM. So I think, you know, there's conservation subdivision becomes an issue only when you're unable to bring all the parties together. Is there an ability to, because we have these long, narrow lots, how can we bring multiple people together and then be able to still do more densification? Like, there's nothing to stop 4 property owners that have long river lots to come back with a just regular subdivision. The advantage is that you could do it in a much more denser, compact form and get it approved in an agricultural restricted area.
even if we're not gonna have services in there?
Exactly,
If it's a conservation.
if it's a conservation subdivision.
And how about industrial, like, is the zoning gonna change to industrial service? Is there a difference, or is it just industrial?
Industrial is industrial, and if we have services, what that does is it opens up the door for more of those types of businesses. Without the services, without water, it requires sprinklering at certain types of industrial buildings, they can't set them. Without sewer, you have limited capacity as to the number of people you can employ, because you're counting the number of flushes and so forth.
Okay, Sandra, we'll let you keep going.
March 10th in the evening, had Red River North Tourism, and one of the things brought up to them was our monies that we give them, and they were wanting to know, and I said I'd bring it to council if they need a letter to present, because we give them that.
That's their
Their
grant,
amount,
their
their-
annual
yeah.
grant that they get.
They wanted to know if they need a letter to send us
Annual grant for, sorry,
for Red River North Tourism.
For tourism.
Red River North Tourism. We'll have that discussion as part of the budget process.
Okay.
And some are already built in the operational budget. And so we just need to talk about how we're looking at reporting them, review the policies. And in my opinion, this is council's opportunity to review if we want to change any of those policies or adopt a methodology of always following the policies.
I just said I'd take it back to council. They said other RMs aren't required. I said, well, I will take it back. They said, I'm not saying anything. But then it changed at their AGM, that I had to correct them too, because they already had the amount in there, and I said, we haven't passed anything. March 16th was Budget Cal and Policy. March 17th was the RRPD meeting. And on there, they talked about cloud permit, and the soft launch was gonna be this week, or last week, and then they would be breaking out in April. During the month of February, they had 19% increase in dwelling permits and 50% increase in permits compared to last February. Their processing time have been reduced by 77% compared to last year, and decreasing from 13 days down to 5. So they're coming along. And that cloud permit will even make even things with less paper trail and make things quicker. I also attended the MAR, and the lady that spoke on there, Barbara McConnell, she was very interesting. A lot of stuff on there of how people, I think I said it earlier today, the wish recycling, that how people, everybody thinks like certain things, and we all picked it up a while ago when Dave did, how so many things have the recycling symbol on, but yet it's just like standardized, but yet in certain countries they don't recycle. So they said how it's very deceiving, and they really don't like those marks on the bottling. And they said there's lots of tools for our RMs to get, so if we're having open houses, whatever, or if there's stuff that we want to stick in. That's when I brought up about that we needed a new job for recycling inspector. I heard Deepak walking back into the RM office. What's this new job? But anyways, there's a lot of people out there that are putting stuff in recycling that ends up that should be in the garbage that we actually don't recycle. So I guess they're having lots of problems with that. Or stuff's getting contaminated. March 18th, we also have the RRPD Education Council sessions. That was their first one. March 19th, I attended Colleen's farewell, and I also had the meeting with Joan from the Interlake Art Council in regards to Legacy Park. The 22nd was Interlake Tourism. I took a course issued through Community Futures, and that was on being a chair, and I think I spoke about it, that how on the rest of these boards, they don't go by the municipal act, so if somebody's in conflict, you can actually call them out on it. But there was another council member there from another RM, and she said, we can't do that, and they said, that's only in your council, so I don't know whether it wants to be attempted or challenged at another board or another
Are you
committee.
suggesting maybe RRPD?
Maybe. And I also attended the RRPD Selkirk hearing, as our mayor put me on the special committee, so I thought I should watch to see what was going on. That was very interesting. The 22nd, we had our special council meeting. 24th, we had our special council meeting. 24th, also, we had a Red River North AGM. They spoke about movie night that they would like to have to move around to the different RMs and possibly use our Legacy Park for it, but they said they will see as COVID advances, things loosen up. They'll also be still having the Red River Paddle Challenge that will end up, starts in Winnipeg and ends up down at Half Moon. And that, there was lots of people there. Last year I attended, and that's when she made a note of, we can bring out our banners, like Welcome to St. Clements, our tent thing, or those that we got, just so people know where they're ending up, because a lot of people don't get out this way to our end of the woods.
Well, they get out here, but they don't know where they are.
Right.
They go to Skinners or they go to Half Moon, but they don't know where they are.
That's true. March 25th, Interlake Tourism. Their big thing is Driftscape, and I found out that Gary Marshall is on the steering committee for the dance, and I'm like, well, I was like, yeah, sure. I didn't know anything about this.
I'm sorry, I thought I did, I brought that forward at one of the council meetings.
No, I don't think it went brought forward.
I am sorry, that's my fault. Gary did
You got
request,
an email on it from,
yes, I thought I did send something from
Yeah,
all
I
the
think
council.
you-
I mustn't have read it
I
either.
mustn't have read it either.
Because,
I know you and-
Gary had requested for myself that I sent something
For
to
just-
council letting them know.
Yeah, so I'm just like, I'm just looking. So I
there
messaged
was
him,
no
I said, hey,
conflict.
did you know? Anyways, Driftscape is becoming a big thing for, it's gonna be like your own personal tour guide.
How long
So,
does it take you?
so I don't know if, is Gary putting anything on for our RM? Like for anything for St. Clements featuring?
The Heritage Committee is working on it, that's part of their budget.
Okay, but that's Heritage Committee, is our RM doing anything? Like, with,
We can certainly ask everything.
okay. And rec meeting on, that's okay, on the 26th, and that was on Friday, met with a couple of the board members from East Selkirk Rec, and I met with Brenna too at Legacy Park, and that's to get stuff rolling there for the recognition, one of the projects from years ago that hasn't been done. So, we're working on that right now, and I'll bring back more to update you. And that's it.
That's it for you? Any questions, comments? Okay, go ahead, Councilor Gazarowicz.
Okay, March 9th through 12th, I too attended the conference via Zoom. One of the things was options after injuries. They talked a lot about concussions, what people could do to stay in sports. Had a virtual introduction with Brenna. It's kind of different. There was another one about COVID and mental health, either with isolation, unemployment, or just employment, addictions. Like 50% of all Canadians are affected. Also deal with fear and uncertainty, and there was another session on colonization on both blacks and natives. There's a native presentation called Heads on Fire, very interesting. Another one on racism, on Black and It Matters. Some interesting things on slavery, and then another on Indigenous teachings. March 16th budget, March 18th the MAR webinar, education on what can be recycled. March 18th, RRPD educational seminar on cloud permits and annual report. March 19th, calling and send off. March 23rd, Selkirk separation from RRPD. And March 24th, the bylaw on third readings. Bylaw, third readings. Thank you. That's it.
Great. I'm not gonna go through any that everybody else has gone through, so, March 10th, the council, or the March 9th, the council meeting, March 10th, Plan 2050, March 15th, I did a Biz Awards video. Jim Pelletier from the Selkirk Biz came over and we did a short little video. I had to put some words together about how our municipality coped with COVID. And then he gave me a little blurb, and we did have a winner from our municipality. We had submitted a couple of names, kind of just like at the last minute. We submitted a couple of names, and we did have a winner, but I can't share it because it hasn't been made public yet, so I'll leave it
We're in
at that.
camera here.
No, we're not in camera, the camera's on. March 16th, Committee of the Whole, March 17th, RPD regular, March 18th, RPD education session. I'm just gonna go back and Sandra mentioned it. At our RPD, we did set up a board, we did set up a committee in the event when Selkirk decides that they are leaving, so that we could have some discussions as to next steps and how to proceed, and making sure that everything is done in a proper manner. Selkirk, of course, did object because we didn't include them. The resolution was passed, so we did have discussion in camera, but there was a resolution passed, so it ended up that Sandra and I both are on the committee because they wanted one rep from each municipality, and of course, because I'm the chair, I am ex officio on the committee, so. On March the 19th, I had another brief meeting with Jennifer and a communications consultant for the public hearing on the 23rd, which we all know about that one. March 19th, I had a WMR executive. We reviewed again the governance model for the new Plan 2050 board, the regional planning board model, so governance model. So we looked at it again, and we still were not quite satisfied that that's how it should look. So we sent the consultant back, and we're having a meeting. I just got a notification we're having a meeting next week again, so. Then, of course, the 23rd, the public hearing in Selkirk, the 24th, the special council meeting. The 24th also, I did attend the Red River North Tourism. I thought the whole package and everything, the way everything went, was put together quite well. Some of these things we know about already. The holiday yard lights was very successful in their mind because they had 57 entrants. And apparently there is a video on the website, but Lois said if you do want to watch it, she said, grab yourself a cup of coffee because it's a half hour long. It's showing all the lights in the various municipalities, so I thought I'd pass that on. Shirley Muir then spoke on the success of Holiday Alley, and there is a Selkirk Scotland that is very interested in what Selkirk Canada did, so they're kind of trying to do something similar to what we've done over here. So, and there were some new appointments to the board. I think Brooke Jones was appointed as the vice president or vice chair, and then there were two other committee members. March 25th, I had a North Red Water Maintenance meeting. We're continuing going the process of dissolving the North Red Water Corp. All the documents were reviewed. There were some changes that were required, and we sent it all back to the lawyers. So hopefully we'll have that in the next week or so, and we'll have it on our agendas at our next council meeting, because each council is required to pass a resolution regarding the dissolution of the corporation. So that will hopefully be here in time for our next agenda. And then March 26th, I had a WMR board meeting. A request has been submitted to the province for an extension for submitting comments and things, or submitting Plan 2050 to the province, because a lot of the municipalities still had questions and concerns. I believe that that was approved, but any questions or concerns should be submitted as soon as possible to WMR. And I also found out, and I didn't know this, that
if you wish to make a presentation, because Bill 37 did get second reading at the Ledge, if you wish to make a presentation regarding Bill 37, they are accepting pre-registration. So maybe at some point, maybe we can have a discussion, because I'm not sure if we want to do a presentation or exactly how we want to do that. I don't know if we want to wait till the 9th, it's not really that far away, so maybe if we could have that on the agenda for the 9th to see if, what we're going to do with that. And the one last thing that they talked about is the Bruce Oak Recovery Center is having a fundraising event. It's a virtual event, but they were looking for sponsorship, and I also asked Deepak to put that on our agenda for next time too. It's, you know, entirely up to council, but I thought it was a very good thing to make a donation to if we so wish. So, and that's all I have. Deepak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, I'll go quickly. Capital borrowing status review for as you know, borrowing bylaws 12 and 13 of 2020 to address the funding for infrastructure priorities have been approved. And since then, municipal board, by the municipal board, and we've just set the respective amending bylaws of 8 and 9 of 2021, which should be reviewed by the board by April 1st. These are for the Henderson Sewer Project and the water treatment plant. And so that will give us the ability to finish and issue the debenture in order to move forward. The other is grant applications. Application of Manitoba Water Services Board with respect to the Henderson Sewer Project for 2021 has been submitted, and we're seeking for $3.5 million in matching grants. The design of the water softener project is complete, and the equipment requirements are being reviewed right now, such as the nanofiltration, as well as many other equipments for that entire building and the scope of that building, because that building itself is going to be expanded, as well as the ability to expand the reservoir underneath, as well as a truck fill that's going to be available there. So that process is moving forward. We continue to await notice of the ISIC funding, and priorities for the province, as you know, have been submitted, and the federal government is we're waiting for that answer. Next is the RM offices are now open. Went through the various stages of public opening, and we are fully open now to the public. The other is project statuses. The St. Clements Gun Creek diversion. We continue to work on it. There's been some challenges on some additional costs related to having to put the pipes under the railway and possibly on the just north of here on these properties, whether we go underneath those properties or do an open ditch design. So either way, those are some costs we have to take that work. That may be some additional costs beyond the budget of $2.7 million. We're still trying to stay within that. If there are some challenges, we're trying to work on those right now. And we're doing some value-based engineering. And I'll continue to keep you informed if there are any concerns there. The St. Clements Quarry engagement and master plan is moving forward, and we should have that communication out to the affected or the representative groups in that area very shortly. Ludwig construction project, of course, is continuing as needed. No further progress as just beginning to start doing that planning. The advantage. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
That's the Ludwig, that's funded, but it costs us nothing.
Correct. It cost us nothing because it's a DFA claim.
Right, thank you.
And so the other is the general meetings, and plan with WMR Plan 2050, the mayor and CAOs meeting with the RCMP, the webinars, several of them, one of them is the Squadron, the AMN Eastern Municipal Visit, the Scotland Miller Murray on various projects, Manitoba Water Services Board and WSB on water treatment plant. Bill 37 working group meeting, which is occurring every 2 weeks, which is supposed to be once a month originally. The RPD on planning files, the Selkirk withdrawal, as well as the 5 councils and CEOs meeting and council training session on online permits with bar and Selkirk public hearing. as well as on that.
Yes.
And the Red River Floodway Operations Advisory Board.
Thank you.
And one of the things I want to discuss with you is that I was, Red River Planning District has requested to no longer be the representative on the Red River Floodway Operations Advisory Board. So the executive director sent it to the CAOs organized, and some political members and some CAOs attended, and some administrative people. And City of Winnipeg's on there, so it's an advisory panel. So they asked for our name to be put onto the board, if we're willing to put our name forward as a primary and an alternate. So I think that's something we need to have a discussion on generally for council. I suggested, I said, it looks like it's more of it's an advisory panel. It's not a panel that decides on floodway operations or makes some of those decisions, but advises on implications and so forth, and maybe some of the things that are happening, and be able to get some general sharing. This year, there was very little to report other than we're all good.
And no flooding.
No flooding, no opening of the floodway, which is a huge advantage. It's also helping us with our sewer project. So I suggested that maybe there should be a council member, and that myself as an alternative, as an administrative alternative. We already have Greg and staff attending the technical meetings, which are a lot more detail-oriented on what happens during the flood emergencies and so forth, and when floodway operations open. But this is more at the advisory panel, and so what I'm suggesting is there should be a council member, somebody that has that level of experience and is interested. Could be the one that's appointed by council, so maybe when we come out in camera today, we can come forward with a resolution on that. And finally, the various budget meetings with council and business operations. That's my report for the day.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Spicer.
Just asking because I don't remember the answer. So we almost got the water treatment plant upgrade engineering completed, almost. What needs to be done for the Henderson project? Are we in the midst of engineering?
We're almost complete on the engineering, and I think they're ready to submit for environmental impact assessments, as well as requesting they've done the design work as to how to drill through the floodway. And the only thing that I've asked them to take into consideration as part of that, with the advice of our resident engineer, Dick Menon, is that they should look at least identifying that drilling could possibly include a water pipe. Even if we can't afford the entire water pipe, maybe it's just through the floodway, and then the rest can be done. We would want to go through that level of approval.
So that's
Makes
huge.
sense.
That makes sense, yeah.
That makes
Put-
sense.
Yeah, put the pipe in, have it stubbed, and then.
Well, thank you. I made a bit of an executive decision on that one.
Go ahead, Scott.
So are you looking at the decommissioning of the wastewater treatment plant and the pumping station as a part of this engineering run?
The decommissioning is already been determined as to what's needed.
Okay.
It's mainly the lift station, so it's a matter of acquisition of equipment. And the analysis has already been done on a previous study by WSP on what kind of lift station, so it's a costing and scenario at that point. So once we determine that we want to do that phase 2, which is the decommissioning, the advantage is we did build it into our this definition of our South St. Clements utility. It called for also decommissioning the Lockwood station, because I was hoping if we didn't have the money, that there may be money coming from, I don't know, Water Services Board, so we'd have to go through another project review or anything. So if we decide to move forward, it shouldn't be very long. And what I'm hoping to do is, if we can find a way to find a decommissioning within the same project timeline.
Yeah, 'cause
Go
that
ahead.
would have to be the final part of the project, because you couldn't decommission it until you have the pipes, everything operable, right?
Correct. Correct.
Because you could,
Yeah,
it was pumped up to 1,000. That would be the lost.
That's right.
I was just thinking of timeline for engineering and stuff like that also, as a
Just
part
to
of
make
what
sure.
you're saying.
Yeah, I think we've got a good handle on it, and as we have a budget discussion with Greg, he's got a very comfortable level on this. And, you know, some of the discussions we've had on some options on how to do this, I've had those discussions with Greg and Kevin. My next step is to try to deal with that. Once we do that level of decommissioning, there's a significant impact also on the rates on the existing ratepayers in Lockport. Because their rates were determined on rebuilding the Lockport treatment plant.
And the operations.
And the operations, and that disappears. And now it's a lift station going to the lagoon, so now what we have is a true utility right across the board. There may be a great opportunity to do a rates study and then do an analysis on
Okay, anything else for DPAC? Heather, do you have anything you would like to share with us today?
I just received notification this afternoon that the municipal enforcement support program is being extended to June 30th, 2021. That's the,
It's the COVID related, when we get paid for some of Tyler's time.
Oh,
We've been
nice.
dealing with COVID related issues from the province of Manitoba, where you can enforce, you know, too many people getting together, or too many people in the house party, or those types of scenarios.
On that note, have we collected anything?
Yes, a little bit.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Would that also cover like when he was just helping people?
Has to be directly related with the enforcement related. It's by the hour, we're keeping track of it, we'll reconcile, but it's of no significance, but nobody knew to the level of impact that this was gonna have, whether we were gonna be running off our feet with people sort of disobeying the orders. I think what ended up happening was when critical red happened, the lockdown further secured to the point that it wasn't needed as much, because it was just before critical red, when they were having all these problems of people avoiding the health orders or ignoring.
Yeah, I think people have gotten lax now, though, of us coming out, that,
I think the vaccine has created a sense of additional less vulnerability, and people are feeling like they can do some more things.
Let their
They are
guard down.
thinking that, yeah,
Yeah.
let their guard down for sure.
Yeah. Anything else, Heather? No. That's it. Shannon, did you have anything?
no,
Okay. I think maybe what we should do, supper is here, but I think maybe we should pass a resolution to go in camera, and we can grab our supper and maybe have it in camera while we're eating, so that we can get out of here right after the planning, hopefully. Sound like a plan?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Yes, it does.
Resolved. I was willing to bring in breakfast
Okay, we'll forget that.
for
That
tomorrow
was this
morning.
morning.
Tomorrow morning's
Right,
breakfast.
tomorrow's
Resolved, council recess the regular meeting and go into in camera to discuss legal and personnel issues.
Now, remember, please. Councilor Horvis, Councilor Sutherland seconds. Any questions, comments? All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. So now we'll just have a little break, and
we shut the camera.
Heather, you can shut the camera down and give us the high sign when it's done.